probability trading strategy, you're full of crap.
If things aren't working, then that's a quick trip to the poorhouse.
To learn how to drive the beater before you can drive the Lamborghini.
Now you're playing with the house's money.
Well, I've got bad news this morning, guys. You know, you will probably be the trader who blows up their account. Why? Because while you were hunting for the perfect setup, you never learned how to handle the fear, the FOMO, and the frustration. You didn't even know those were going to be problems for you when you started trading. But I promise you, by the time this episode is over, we're breaking down mechanics and mindset and showing you what actually builds consistency. So the truth is, you think it's your setup, but it's actually perhaps your self-sabotage. Good morning, Mike, or good afternoon.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, Dennis. Yeah, things, it's about noon where I am. What time is it over by you in Hawaii?
It is, let's see, the sun has not come up yet. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my goodness.
And so,
All right.
so what do you think about this, Mike? This aspect of, what stories do we have that relates to when we first got started trading? This show is dedicated to beginning and newer traders.
Mhm.
And what were some of the things when you plugged in that you were really focused on learning, but that initial learning left out some stuff? And so, I know you made a couple of notes on what you wanted to chat about on this one, and I thought they were really great. But
Yeah.
first time overlooking, the overloading on indicators. What's your beginning trader story?
Okay, yeah, so we'll fast forward a little bit to when I really started to dig in, because when I first started out, I was completely all over the place, like completely wrong beliefs, and didn't even really understand that, it takes a little bit more than just putting money in and waiting a certain amount of time and more money will magically pop out the other side. That's what my initial thoughts were. But, about 10 years in, and I finally found out about William O'Neill and how to make money in stocks, and found the IBD meetup group, so which we were talking a little bit before the show started.
Yeah.
And when the first, or what I should say, well, one of the bigger mistakes that I made early on after I finally started to get onto the right track was to kind of be like this guy that's never eaten before and is in front of the buffet, right? And just trying to pile the plate a mile high. And by the time I got back to my seat, I'm spilling everything all over the floor. And I did this in the form of not indicators, but rules, right? So there's plenty of rules in how to make money in stocks. I learned a lot more rules from all the great leaders at the New York City Investors Business Daily meetup. Then I came up with a few rules of myself, and before I knew it, I had 100 different buy rules, about 60, 70 different sell rules. And it would be one thing if I had the experience to go along with it, and the battle testing, where it's, like these things are ingrained. But at that point, they're all kind of surface level. Right.
Yeah.
So just have these lists, and it's like, all right, I'm good to go. And here's the market, and it's moving, and I have a few positions on, and it's like, all right, I've got my lists in my hand. Well, what are we going to do? So I go through my buy rules, and it's like, okay, well, we've got about 30 or so different buy rules happening. Oh, but wait a minute, there's another 20 or so sell rules. Oh, what do I do? And before, you're making the exact wrong move at the exact wrong time. And I found out the hard way that just having a bunch of stuff written down, well, without the experience, doesn't really lead you to where you want to go.
Yeah. So, okay. So it sounds like you had the manual to the car, but you'd never taken driving lessons.
Right. Oh my goodness. That's a really great analogy. Yeah, you reading the book and then you step behind the wheel and you're trying to figure out, well, which one's the gas and which one's the brake, and you just go through the intersection and, well,
Whoops.
yeah, now
Bam.
you know.
So in other words, us when we were beginning traders, we were accidents looking for a place to happen. Is that the bottom
Yes.
line?
Well, I don't know about everybody else out there, but that was me.
So yeah,
How about you?
yeah, I basically, the technical side of me was so intrigued by the charts
Mhm,
and the indicators, and I'm just going, if I just logically think my way through this, I'm gonna, later on in my career, I was introduced to the I took a different approach. Let me explain to you. Is
mhm.
I took the approach of learning the technical side first. Okay,
Okay.
the traditional technical analyst type side, because I said, hey, I understood the process of the patterns on the chart repeating and all that type of stuff, and I
Mhm.
dug in deep and actually did all the coursework to get my CMT,
Okay.
and so was building up on that, and then was introduced to IBD, Investor Business
Mhm,
Daily, through their meetups, and also I'd been a member of, a subscriber to IBD paper for a long time, even back when it
mhm,
was the IBD 100 stocks they would put out every week rather
mhm,
than this 50. And what I learned, um, well, what happened was I was intrigued by the technicals, and so I went to work learning, 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 learning. IBD came along, and it gave me a little bit more texture to my learning. At
okay.
the same time, I was not getting okay, here's all you've learned all this stuff. Here's how to apply it. There was
Mm,
a missing link there for me on how to apply it, and I was too stinking stubborn to go and find a coach that would show me how
mm,
and so I had to figure it out on my own. And
uh-huh,
so that's what would happen. And then when I got into IBD, I love the process, or I love how it took care of the fundamental, because I hated doing fundamental analysis. So
mhm,
I figured if I trust in to do my fundamentals, that way I know I'm always trading the strongest stocks. Now I
right,
just have to rely on my knowledge of technical analysis. And again, the traditional technicals,
mhm,
not necessarily the same patterns that IBD presents, and that's okay. Uh, and so I processed through that, but I still wasn't winning. I wasn't winning. I,
mm,
I would still blow up because there were a lot of things like what I found is that I wasn't following all my rules. In
mhm.
particular, the biggest rule I wasn't following was um, my entry and my exit rules.
No?
Because I would get emotionally involved and going, oh darn it, I missed that entry. Well, I better jump in now and buy
Mm,
some now. And I said,
right,
well,
right.
if I jump in now, what does that do to my stop loss? And I didn't take into
Mm,
consideration the risk involved.
oh,
And so
yeah.
then and I wouldn't put in my hard stops. And so then the trade, of course, would turn against me and start
Right, right.
falling from huh?
Yeah, so a trade that where you have your exact entry and your stop pre-planned, and let's say I don't know, it's 3% risk, but I missed the entry. Well, let me just go for it. I did all this work, and now all of a sudden the distance between your entry and your original stop is now 5%, right? So
Exactly.
not quite as good as it was down at 3%. It's almost not like doubling the risk. Trust me, I've done that way too many times, an embarrassing amount of times.
Yeah,
Um,
and when I look back on that now, it's laughable. I mean, I
yeah.
just gonna crack myself up. But when I was going through it, it was painful. It hurt
Mhm.
because I mean, I don't think anybody really likes that feeling you have when you're losing. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't like losing money.
Yeah,
Um,
no, me
a-
neither. Who does?
But at the same time, um, so what I found was that's when I found that there was a division and nobody was talking about everybody was so focused. Well, here's what everybody was focused on. They were focused on you learn your mechanics, learn how to enter and learn how to exit. And so you have all
Mhm,
these rules and that's all good and all that kind of stuff. But nobody was talking about one, here's your rules, but here's how you really apply it.
mhm.
You know, how you really apply the rules. And then
Okay.
secondly, here's your rules. And oh, by the way, here's this other. It wasn't just a little carry-on suitcase, on that you
Mhm.
carry on the airplane. It was like a cargo trunk that's
Mm.
called your emotions. And that you came dragging behind you, all the beliefs, false beliefs that I carried about money, all the things I'd been told as a person growing up,
Mhm.
that had shaped my concept of money and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden I found that, oh my gosh, this money stuff is really an emotional situation. Um, yeah, and the other, then the traps we fell into. What are the traps you fell into? And they almost always had to do with the mechanics. Like, uh, we all started thinking, well, if I just get more knowledge, if I just read another book, will
Right.
equal greater success. And then the market turned about, let's call the market reality.
Mhm.
Okay. And reality would come and slap me on the face and go, and I'd sit there and go, but I'm following all the rules. I don't understand. Why is this happening to me? So what about you? So do you remember the first trade you made? First trade that made you realize mindset mattered more than strategy?
Hmm. Uh, I don't remember it being an individual trade that did that, but I remember talking about the IBD meetups a lot lately. um, I remember there being trading psychology discussed quite a bit in the meetups, and one of the things that really started to solidify it for me was when somebody turned me onto this guy Van Tharp. I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah,
yeah, hopefully people know that name. If they don't, it's worth looking up. He wrote a number of books. Trading psychology, position sizing, a lot about treating trading like a business, and that's where I first started to get that idea of yeah, there's you need an actual business plan for your trading, and
right.
so I started to learn about mindset and beliefs and how to dig into and question your beliefs a lot from Van, and that was maybe about 8-10 months in, and then another 6 months or so after that's when I met Mark Minervini, and that's when everything started to gel because he starts to it's taking the finer details of what I was learning in Can Slim, solidified it, seeing how things can be traded with momentum and growth and turned it over, and that was very appealing to me. That was just a style that resonated, but it's also the mindset elements where you think about mindset as deep breathing or meditation, and those things are important, and part of it absolutely, but a lot of it comes down to how we practice and how we
Yeah,
prepare.
yeah,
And if we're preparing and practicing the wrong kinds of things, and that's a
right.
trap that so many of us fall into, right? Oh, well, maybe we should do more analysis. And maybe we should start reading stories. Maybe we should go see what's being said on the news. Maybe we should go see what X, Y, and Z people are saying over on X and on whatever
Yeah.
social platform.
Maybe we
And
should listen. Maybe we should listen to Jim Cramer, right?
yeah, sure. And then take the whole gamut of what people are saying, and well, I'll go with what the consensus says, right? Because the consensus is always the right answer. Well, yeah, no, that couldn't be further from the truth. And so when you start to figure out, well, how do we how do we figure out, well, what types of things we should be practicing? That ends up eliminating 98% of the noise, because if we're practicing in the right way, then we're truly focused. Then we're on the straight and narrow, and it what is noise versus what's important becomes absolutely clear.
Yeah. And I think for me, I kind of started to step over that threshold when, at some point I heard one of my mentors say that I should be able to have my trading rules all on one page, right?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that's one of the things that I found very interesting about, I went to a few of the master classes with Investor Business Daily, and I found that they had like 27 rules to get in and 47 rules to get out. And I'm going,
Hmm.
holy moly, that's going to drive me nuts. And I'm a person who was still working full time, right? And I'm
Hmm.
going, how am I going to apply this to real life? And so for
And
me,
get
it
it onto
wasn't.
one page.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I wound up doing is I wound up, for some reason, I had an inspiration. Maybe it was a, touched by an angel kind of inspiration, going, hey, why don't you just take the best pieces of these swing trading systems
Hmm.
and roll that into a new system
Hmm.
that is to help you clarify and simplify what you're doing. So you provide a clarified and simplified approach to swing trading. And that's what
Mm.
I did. And that's when I built down, brought my rules down to, like, I have like 4 entry rules and I have like 4 exit rules. And that's it. And the other thing was being introduced to somebody like Mark Douglas, who said, "Hey, focus on just one type of entry,
Mhm.
and recognizing that you can't control what the market's doing, so stop trying, and
Right.
become comfortable with the concept of you only can control a couple of things: when you enter and when you exit, and you also can control how much do you buy. Okay, so
Yeah.
and that all comes down to trade management.
Mhm.
And as I built that, what I found happening, we're going to get into the mindset side of it, but as I built that, is I had my mindset started to change, and I became all right with, I don't have to be in the market all day watching the screen,
Mhm.
because that's what I thought the full-time traders did, was watch the screen all day. And so when I
Mm.
went and became a trading for a living type of guy, I thought, well, I got to be watching the market all day long, all of it, and all it did is that stirred up my emotions to help, and that stirring up of the emotions helped me to make impulsive compulsive decisions that turned out to be devastating to my accounts, and
Right.
because I was still stubborn. Um, but
Whatever
yeah,
kind of style we choose, it has to be sustainable. Well, let's say
exactly.
that we're able to stare at the screens all day long, and let's say that we're able to make that work, and we're able to put on some really, really great trades, make a lot of money, and
Yeah,
that feels real good. But if you're not able to do that all the time, if you start to get burned out, then it's not something that's sustainable. If everybody wants consistency, consistency is something that is sustainable too.
yeah.
So we've got to think about that piece of it when we're trying to come up with our strategies and our plans.
And the thing about it is everybody wants consistency, right?
Hmm.
However, consistency, to become a consistent trader, equates to becoming a disciplined trader.
Hmm.
And not
Yeah, absolutely.
everyone wants to become disciplined. Ooh, they don't. I mean, they basically, um,
So yeah,
huh?
we'll down that path.
And what I'm saying is, I mean, just look at, and I'm convinced that they say that only 10% of the people who start to trading actually successfully, get to where they're successful in trading, successful.
Mhm.
But that 10%, that basically goes across the population of whatever. It's an innate learned, it's either innate or it's learned. That discipline can be learned.
Mhm.
But that, 10% of the population tends to be more disciplined than the rest of the population that are
Mhm.
that are basically blown by the wind back and forth, and they can't take a stand.
Well,
And
do
I
we pop
think that
out of a room with discipline, or is yeah? What side of the fence do you stand on this?
uh, that's a great question. Do you pop out of the room with discipline, or where do you stand on that? And that's something that we can say. You can ask the guys that are tuned in today. How is discipline? Did you struggle with discipline when you started trading? And just put a Y or an N down in the comments section. And so, I don't think you pop out of the womb with with discipline built in. Although I think there is a certain amount of tradition or a family DNA that's built into it that
Mhm.
makes us more
Mm.
prone to could be disciplined. I think part of
Okay.
it is just as our beliefs are shaped about ourselves and our beliefs about how to succeed. I think that's when discipline
Uh,
starts to build. And then um, and then I think experiencing some losses,
mhm.
experiencing some setbacks in life, particularly early on, because I grew up in an era when there was less parental protection. I know this sounds terrible, but it, my parents would, let me experiment and all that kind of stuff. And as long as I came home with all my fingers and toes, everything was great.
Mhm.
But the thing about it is there was a higher level of, let me say, being able to adventure.
Mm.
And I think being on a life of adventure helped to one, help me for one face down some difficulties and then learn, how do I get over these difficulties? Well, I have to become disciplined to do that.
Mm.
Now, have I always been disciplined? And does my discipline, does it shrink sometimes? Yeah, that's the way, that's the way life is also. We were talking about that a little bit earlier on too. So
Mhm.
so what do you think, Mike, the beginner's blind spots are? Just what are some of the beginner's blind spot? We covered a little bit of it, but and we talked about informational
Mhm.
overload because
Right. Right.
and we're so hungry. We have that, and there's this psychological thing that's called it has to do with the fresh start enthusiasm that a person has when they start something new. And then all of a sudden they discover, oh, this is going to be harder than I thought it was going to be. I need some discipline.
Mhm.
And that's when they start going, well, maybe this isn't as good an idea because it's going to require something of me. And they start backing off from it. But, so information overload. Uh, so what are some of the other common traps that a person can, run into?
Yeah, I think that's a great question for the audience too. I saw Caleb typing into the chat earlier. Caleb, how would you? Well, what do you think are some of the uh, common problems that people run into as far as these common traps, especially when you're early in your trading journey? And for everybody else out there that's listening too, tell us what you think. Um, so some of the ones that I've come across, some of the ones that I've experienced, um, thinking that bad expectations, thinking that it's a lot easier and simpler than it is, mistrust when it turns out that it's not as simple and easy. So now I'm not going to listen to anybody, whether
Mm,
they have good intentions, whether they're knowledgeable or not. That's the part that kept me stuck for a decade. That's the
wow.
part right there. The listening to people uh, at first, right, thinking that it was too easy, get it, finding out the hard way that it's not easy, and then mistrusting everybody. those are the two biggest ones for me, and that's what kept me stuck for so long.
So you were mistrusting like people that you considered mentors and that kind of stuff?
Uh, Anybody that came across as trying to either be a coach or a mentor, or well, they're just trying to sell me something, and I'd run in the
Yeah.
opposite direction.
Yeah, yeah, and there was a lot of that. I mean, if you go back 20 years from now, or 20 years
Yeah.
into the back, there were a lot of, and there still are out there, people, trying to sell, sell things, and
Right.
the and you have to always ask yourself, what's being sold? Is the flash being sold? Just you're going to make a bazillion dollars, no, we're going to get, you're going to make 70%, 100% every year. And if that's the tact of what's being sold, let me tell you, that's really unrealistic. And one of the things that I learned early on was from Dr. Stocks. Dr. Stock is that he is gosh, Carr.
On
Dr.
Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
No,
guy
no,
that wears
no, no,
the
no,
rice
no,
hat.
no,
No?
not that Dr. Stock. This is Dr. Stock. It's his name is Thomas Carr, and he is really
Okay.
excellent. He wrote a couple of really good books on swing trading, and he said that a good swing, and he brought a lot of clarity. He said that, and to help people with their expectations, he said that basically a good, solid swing trading system with an edge, your upside is on average about 40% per year.
Okay.
Okay. With a 45 to 55, 60% win-loss ratio.
Yeah,
So
that sounds about right.
okay. And so he brought that into being realistic. And this aspect of when somebody comes out and says, hey, I have a 90% win-loss ratio, is not necessarily a good thing, because you also need to know, well, what is your actual how much do you make per trade and all that kind of stuff. A lot of other things go into that. I won't get into the total nuts and bolts on that. But if you don't know what your expectancy, or you haven't proven the expectancy of your system, a 90% win-loss ratio means nothing. I mean, it basically it has little meaning whatsoever. But
Sure.
so, this aspect of, before we jump into the concept and we get digging into the question of mindset over mechanics over mindset, which is more important. Mike, you made some notes here. What are some of the warning signs that a trader is falling into informational overload? And some of those other questions there. I know you had some additional thoughts on that area.
Right. So, well, one of the warning signs, I think, is where we start to think about screen time, and people think that screen time is important, and so many of these things are double-edged swords, and there's shreds of truth in every lie. Right. So here's
Yeah.
where I think that the shred of truth is in the lie. Is screen time important? Sure, special, but it depends upon how you're spending your screen time. If you think that you're going to research and analyze and take in more and more this way, that I think that's where it starts to become the lie. If you're spending screen time trying to learn, then rather like doing something like a back test or a model book study, and trying to understand the craft that way, I think that's where time should be spent. But if you're constantly spinning your wheels and sitting in front of screens all day, unless if you're a day trader, and even I have friends that are day traders, and they're not spending all day every day in front of the screens too. Like they have their set blocks of time where they'll go and they'll trade, and then the rest of the day they'll take off.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
You have to be intentional about how you spend your time, how you research, how you learn. Be intentional with all this stuff.
So, yeah, I think that one of the biggest benefits that we can bring to people through the podcast, the Trading Truths podcast, is if we can just help them realize that doing screen time, as we said, in front of the computer is basically not building reps. That is not building up your strength as a trader whatsoever. What builds up your strength as a trader is, as you mentioned, those guys who are day traders. Typically, the people who blow up in day trading are the ones that treat it. It's almost like an addiction. It's like a gambling addiction to them. They have to be on the screen and trying to get even with the losses they had in the morning, all that kind of stuff. But the ones
this
who
one
really,
looks a little good, let me try it.
yeah,
Right,
exactly.
like these borderline trades. Yeah, I was talking to somebody just the other day. Borderline kind of trades. Like they'll have like a couple of good trades. They'll feel like they're doing good, feel like they know something, and then all of a sudden, like, oh yeah, like that one, like I know that one's gonna go. And well, here we are again.
Yeah, here we are again. That's it kind of reminds me of the old story of you've known somebody who has hard time with relationships, that they seem to jump from person to person, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes they even get married to them married multiple times. And I always jokingly say, that they're marrying the same person, but they have a different face.
Interesting.
You got to think about that for a second. In other words, they're making the same mistake over and over again, but it just has a totally different face. That aspect, as you said, chasing more than one setup. That was one of the other things that we were talking about. But what I was going to say is, when I know for myself, I know it was about the day trader. A lot of times, the day traders, they will come in and they give themselves like the first half hour or the first hour, and then they are done. And if they don't have their setup, they don't take a trade. And if they do have a setup, they take the trade, but they have their rules they have set in place where they set their stops. And if they get hit, they will sometimes take another trade, but if it's all within that time frame. And so they have basically a time schedule of when they do their trading, and then they have their rules specifically about an A+ setup. Oh, it didn't work, I'm out, I'm done. And they take it what it is. If it's a losing day, it's a losing day. If it's a winning day, it's a winning day. And so they're not, I think they've made peace with their emotional side. That emotional side that says, you got to get even. You have to beat the market. And the thing about it is we're not going to, the market is not there to be beaten, because the market's the market. The market will always win if you have that kind of attitude. And what we want to do is just understand how probabilities work, understand how, you take your best setup, do it. If it fails, it fails. But at the same time, take your profits where you're targeted to take your profits. That's the other thing some of these day traders do. They have a set profit, and they're usually doing it off the risk reward. And so if they have a risk reward of 2, they'll take their profits when they hit 2 times the risk, and they're done. And it makes it so mechanical and so standardized. So,
and the people that struggle with it are the ones that will take the profit at that 2 where they're supposed to, and then see the trade go and, oh, I should have held on, and then because of that make another mistake right after it, right? Because they felt like they should have held on, didn't, and it's so right. A few weeks ago, maybe a little bit longer, we did the 7 deadly sins, envy creeping in, right?
Yes.
Like, oh, I should have held on, right? That being a common one.
Yep.
Let's see what else was baked in there. We had I it escapes me, but envy's definitely a big one.
Yeah, envy, greed, with some of the other ones that, the greed would say, "Oh, if I would only stayed on," and and what we have to be on guard against, I think, is if we focus totally on the mechanics of it, we don't account for that self-talk. And the
Mhm.
self-talk clearly falls under the mindset from, what I believe. And so while mechanics matter,
Mhm.
you know, at some being aware from the very beginning that at some point you're gonna have to start talking about mindset, or if somebody you're working with a mentor and they walk you down the path of, here's the mechanics, we want to learn the mechanics, but also we want to be focusing on the mental side, but not overload them with the mental side, because that can get into but at least start introducing that you're going to have these feelings, you're going to have these thoughts that you're going to really shock yourself with. But I know for me, I remember some of the uh, you know, if I remember some of the things that I would first think about, and when I first became aware of my mindset, it was what dealing with what I had been conditioned to believe.
Mm.
Okay. And then one of the ones I like to always refer back to is the beliefs that I was raised, way my parents, gave me. One, they had this. They would always say to me, "Dennis, you can do anything you set your mind to," right? That's good. That's good. That's positive. But on the other hand, they would say, but don't become too successful, because we don't want you to be like those rich people.
Mm.
Now, that came from their conditioning where they grew up, because my mom was the daughter of a sharecropper in Arkansas, right? And so they
Mhm.
had very meager, that's where they came from, very meager. And back in Arkansas, back in the 1930s and 40s, and even, into the 50s, there was a, landowner, and then the peasants, the people who had to work the land and all that kind of stuff. And there was a divide there. And so they were the rich, the landowners, the rich, the people who were wealthy were looked on, with suspicion, that, the only way they could have gotten there. But again, it was half truths. It was false truths that people believed about the wealthy. But that's what mom and dad imparted to me. And so I was in conflict, man. I was in conflict between, hey, I can do anything I set my mind to, which in a lot of areas of my life, I did that. But it was like an anchor
Mm.
regarding performance, the monetary performance. And so it
Right.
was a
Right.
it was a drain or an anchor on my ability to make money in the market.
Wow.
So what about what about
Yeah.
you, Mike? From what was the biggest thing mindset wide that you had to get over? People want to know.
I so many things need to get over mindset. Like probably the biggest thing is the focusing on one thing, and having to sacrifice the rest. That's part of it. I think that something else that's very important is to come in with a mind that is um, poor in spirit. This is one that I've been reflecting on quite a bit recently. The When Christ says, "Be poor in spirit," well, what exactly does that mean? When he was given the Sermon on the Mount, uh, poor in spirit, and part of what's come back is to not have preconceived ideas, right? So if I come in to the market and I have certain expectations of, oh, today's going to be a green day, or this trade's going to do X, Y, or Z, or I know something, well, then I'm coming in with a certain expectation. And in trading, that doesn't work out too well. We've got to be able to be flexible and bend well with like a tree in the wind, like Bill O'Neill used to say.
Okay.
So part of what we need to do then is to have that plan of, okay, here's I'm buying this because sure, we do have a certain expectation that based on probabilities and historical research and all these kind of things. So I'll enter here. I have my stop loss here, and we have them at these places, not just picked out of a hat, but because we've studied price action or whatever it is that you study. But for us, we have it based on price action, so limited risk, high upside, and so we'll let it play out, but we're not attached to the outcome.
Yeah.
And if the trade
Yeah,
works,
exactly.
it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And it's not where it's like, oh, this trade didn't work, but I knew that it was supposed to go. So let me go and hop in again and hop in again and hop in. Or maybe there's something else that's moving now. So let me go hop into that one. No, that's getting all into the expectation. If you're poor in spirit in this way, you're not attached to outcomes. I think that's an important mindset to cultivate as
That's
traders.
interesting.
It's
Yeah.
one that I try to cultivate.
So, so poor in spirit is, it's not the concept of monetarily poor. It's more about the having the right attitude and
Yeah.
right beliefs about getting, about working with the market or working in anything. Because I mean, that's something that's applicable across all of life. I mean, that's kind of how my one of the things my scripture from over my life, the verse over my life is Proverbs 3:5-10. But it starts off with trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding. In other words, you don't start with you have to be very careful with our understandings because his understanding is perfect, my understanding is limited, right? In all
Oh
your
man,
ways.
if I had only adopted that one earlier on, I would have saved me 10 years trying to lean on my own understanding of how I was going to trade. Well, see how that one worked out.
Exactly. And then the rest of the verse kind of goes on and says, in all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. And then goes on as just the final, coup de grace, if you will, is do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. And so that was the verse that I grew up with hanging over my bed. My mom had bought this little plaque, and that was hanging over my bed throughout my whole life. And so whenever I get a little bit too, big-headed or thinking that it's me, something will happen to remind me, and sometimes that reminding is not a good thing, and whack me up a little bit to remind me that I can't lean on my own understanding. Now, let's bring this up. Has God helped me have understanding and knowledge that is above average for the marketplace and for the stock market? Yeah, He has. And that's one of the things that I have to be aware of, but I can't be necessarily proud of that, but I can't shy away from it either, and so I don't, so we don't brag about it, but at the same time though, I have to acknowledge that, you know, the facts are the facts, and acknowledging our strengths is not necessarily bragging about them. It's just, it's especially if we try to turn our strengths around so that we're helping other people. So, yeah. Anyway, so does how do we tie up our emotional as we move along? But how do we tie in our emotional mastery? Like confidence is greater than certainty, consistency is greater than excitement, and some of the ways that I've done that and throughout my life and what we've developed with my system is we do all of our planning, all of our actual trading outside of market hours because
Okay.
it reduces the emotional strain. And so that's one of the
Makes sense.
ways we take care of doing that. Um, so, while mechanics, they may give us control, our mindset, I think, is what gives us our staying power. So,
Hmm.
so what, anything else in that area, Mike? What's one mechanical rule every beginner should master first? One
Yeah.
mechanical rule.
Yeah, keeping your learning time and your trading time separate. I think that you hit the nail on the head there.
Wow.
Like a learning time, trading time, analysis time, like these are separate things. If we try to do everything all at once, that it leads to a lot of confusion.
Wow. So, okay. So it almost sounds like they should start with a plan, and I know that you provide that wonderful business plan of helping people build their trading business plan. So
Right,
I
right.
think that if I were to say one thing, one mechanical rule, uh, uh, is to not even open a brokerage account until you have a plan, a plan that has been shown to be successful. And most people will share their plans with you. I mean, I share for free. I send people my, rules on one page. And that's my
Hmm.
plan. And then they can build off of that, whatever they want to do with it. But at least it gives them a starting point
Right.
because, for many people, they come in and they're just totally missing the boat. They think, I think there's this misconception and perception that, oh, trading's easy. How hard could it be? All you're doing is sitting around watching a bunch of charts and just throwing orders on. Uh, but people, that's one attitude about it. Or people have the I'm scared to death of it, so I don't know what I want to do. So
Mm.
would be one of my the other kind of rule. Um, After you have have a plan that is a winning plan, is always use stop losses.
Yeah, that's
Always. Always. I mean, I almost feel like I should get a tattoo that says, always use stop losses.
yeah, right.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Or
Um,
at least like just have it plastered as your wallpaper on the computer. Always use
yes.
stop losses. It's very important, and yeah. Too many people uh, tend to think that, oh well, here's a common myth that I hear that, oh, the brokers are they're hunting for stop losses. The market makers, they're trying
Right.
to go and take your stops. That's not true. No, nobody, for the handful of shares that we have, nobody is looking at that. The institutions are playing a much bigger game there. If
Yeah.
you're getting constantly stopped out, maybe it has to do with where the stop was placed.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. And the thing about it is that, and that's where I think partly the mechanics and the mindset will help a person understand and learn where, because if I'm just putting a stop loss where I think it should go and that's it, well, guess
Mhm.
what? There's a whole herd of people out there that are doing the same daggum thing and putting their
Mm.
stop loss approximately right there. And guess what? It does work like a magnet, and prices will drop down to that level. But the thing about getting wisdom, there's learning, but then there's wisdom in the market. And I think
Mm.
that's when you start transitioning and applying both mechanics and mindset, weaving them together. And the wisdom
Mm.
tells you that, okay, I understand where the majority of people are going to put their stops. Therefore, I know where to put mine that'll be a little bit lower. but then become willing to accept sometimes they're going to get taken out. So,
Yep.
hey guys, I just posted a link in there for a workshop that I'm hosting on Thursday of this week. And we're going to host that at 30 minutes after the market closes. So if you're on the West Coast, we're talking about 1:30 in the afternoon. And we're going to be talking, we're going to dig deeper into mechanics and mindset, which is most important. And you'll come away with from that with a workable plan to address and strengthen both your mechanics and your mindset. And there's limited seats available, so you want to register early for that.
Yeah, sounds exciting.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun time. Well, and it's only gonna last like an hour, and then we're gonna move on from there and get ready for Independence Day.
Awesome.
Let me go. So I shot that in down there, and so hey, if you're listening right now, tell us. What tripped you up more as a beginning trader, mechanics or mindset? Just leave a note down in the comments. I appreciate that. And then let's see. Oh, we're hearing from a lot of new traders lately, and we want to welcome them to to today's session. I'd kind of like to know, Mike, is if you've been trading for less than 5 years, just put a Y in down in the comment section. If you've been trading for less than 5 years. So let's dig into the mindset myth that wrecks the beginning traders. Mike, I know this is your area of expertise. So you want to dig into those myths and some of the things, those 3 myths we identified here?
Yeah, so the main 3 that we have are number 1, you have to be right all the time. Number 2, you need to watch charts all day to succeed. And number 3, it's too late to build wealth through trading. I'd also add that people need to learn the basics, and they need to learn the basics from someone or something that actually works. Right now, I think that we live in a time where there's perhaps an overabundance of information, so it's wading through all the noise. All right, well, we're constantly right, like everybody wants their voice to be heard, and right, like, well, we are putting out this show, we want our voices to be heard too. So
sure.
So there's this constant battle for ears and eyeballs. And so as somebody that's out there that's trying to learn, well, what and who do I learn from? You have to start with something that actually works. So keeping the goal in mind first is important, right? Like, well, what is your goal? Well, what's your financial goal? Like, well, what kind of numbers are you trying to hit? Are you trying to hit the kind of numbers that Dennis had mentioned before, that that guy Thomas Carr was talking about? Well, with 40% annual return. Are you trying to hit numbers like that? Well, what kind of time investment are you trying to do? Are you trying to be a day trader? Do you want to focus on the market at a certain time of the day? Are you trying to do something a little bit more like what Dennis is doing, where he trades, comes up with the plans at night on weekends and has his system going on during the day, right? Like, Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, but right now, like, you're active, but you don't have to sit in front of a chart in order to make trades.
I mean, I have right now, I have 7 orders that are in place that will either, they either trigger or they don't trigger, but I have 7 orders in place where I've defined exactly where I want to be buying. So that's the one parameter. And if I'm filled on those, guess what? My system automatically puts in the sell orders that'll sell either at my profit target or my stop losses. So I can sit here and, with you, Mike, and we're having a really great conversation and I'm having a good time. And I'm not worried about what's going on with my trades, because the trades are taking care of themselves. I think that was one of the most freeing thing that ever happened to me is when I learned how to automate my trading with conditional orders. And
Mm,
they did it no matter what platform you're trading, learning how to do that is just, like I said, it was liberating, and
right.
it's kind of cool. And I get emails from members of Autopilot Trading. They'll come back and say, "Yeah, I was up on the mountain skiing today, Dennis, and I put in all my orders on Sunday, and but hey, right now I'm hanging out on the mountain, having a good time skiing, and oh, it was so cool to get my, the notification on my phone that the order was filled,
Mm,
the profit target was hit." He goes, wow. And for some of them, uh, they had reached a place where, because they were so burnt out on watching their screens, that
mhm,
they were going to stop trading. They were going to stop. They said,
mm,
I'm going to start investing in mutual funds. I'm going to stop trading. But by being introduced to this concept of what I call my fire and forget automated conditional order process, they now can go about living their life, and I love it. I
mhm.
mean, setting people free is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and the screen, it doesn't have to just be like a desktop. Your phone counts as a screen too. So if you're somebody that's just like, oh, well, I put this trade on. Well, what's it doing now? What's it doing?
Yeah,
We need freedom, right?
exactly.
It's freedom from that idea that we have to constantly check in. And Dennis, yeah, well, what your whole concept of well, planning out the whole thing. The orders are there. If it crosses, I'm in. If I'm in, all the other orders to sell either at a win or at a loss, all that stuff is there. That's freeing. That allows me to take this, throw it in the drawer, and have a nice conversation.
Exactly, exactly. I can go. If my wife wants to go out for breakfast or anything like that, I can go do that, and it opens up time to be, and it also opens up time for me to run my business. The
Mhm.
Autopilot Trading service, but
Yeah,
also do my ministry
absolutely.
work, at my
Oh yeah.
church, and on all those type of things. And I know you do some, a lot of similar type stuff, Mike, because I mean, you have, your ministry work you do through your parish and all
Mhm.
that type of stuff, and just like I said, that freedom. And so cool. What else? Let's see. Did you get through all the myths? We
Now
could.
we mentioned them all. I don't know.
Okay.
Did we go deep enough on each of these? Or
Well, let me hit the myth number 3 really quick, and then we'll run
okay.
down to building the right foundation. Is
All right.
and
Sounds
the
good.
and myth number 3, it's too late to build wealth through trading, and
Mm,
that is
okay.
unadulterated BS. Now, um, I what has to happen though is, again, you have to set in place a process. And I encourage the people who are out there who are retired, to start going, okay, how can I start? Maybe you didn't save in your youth the way you should have, or wouldn't, or whatever, or didn't know, um,
Mhm.
that you should be doing. But start now. I mean, if you can put away $100 a
Yeah.
month for a year, okay, that's $1,200.
Mhm.
If you could do more than that, that's great too. Or maybe you have just a few $1,000s left. Now, I'm not saying take all that money and start investing, but take it and start learning how to think about turning your some of your savings into investing, because
Right.
investing is how you grow your wealth. And so
Absolutely.
therefore is, like Michelle and I, we are in our seventh generation and seventh decade, right? Well,
Wow.
we still, we go through, and we did a sit down meeting the other day where we said, okay, how are we doing? Are we saving, or not saving? Are we investing enough? And actually was encouraged to take the process that Jim Rohn talks about. It is, out of all your income, 70% to live on, and then 30%, 10% goes to your charity or through a tithe to your church, and then the other
Mhm.
20% is done for investments. And so
Mhm.
we check to see how close we were coming to that, and we go,
Mhm.
holy moly, we need to start upping our amount of investing so that for us it's a legacy issue. Okay,
Mm.
to
That's a
we want our grandkids to be going. Look at Papa and Tutu. They're pulling together. And showing us how to do this, and it's really cool to watch what happens when you make this kind of dedicated process and keep doing it, because all of a
wow.
sudden your wealth starts to increase. Your wealth starts to
Yeah.
increase, and you're
Yeah,
going,
different
and
kinds of
then
wealth, it
and then
sounds like,
learning
too.
how to, and excuse me.
Different kinds of wealth, too. Not
Yeah.
not just,
ex-
financial, but spiritual, soul, family.
oh yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's and it also it is actually obeying the first commandment, that one of the first commandments that God gave to Adam and Eve. It says to um, be fruitful and multiply. He wasn't just
Mm.
talking about having kids. He was talking about everything we touched can be fruitful and multiply. So
Mm.
so hey, let's wrap. As we wrap up, what are some of the building the right foundation? I think part of building the right foundation, Mike hit on finding a plan that works. A couple of other ones is that journal every trade. Learn how to journal,
Mm. Yeah,
and if
that's
you would
smart.
need to expand your journaling into your life,
Mhm.
because it is all connected. Set rules for
Yes.
risk and stick to them, and define your identity as a trader. I am a
Mhm.
consistent trader because I'm like,
Right.
that's one of the things that Mark Douglas talks. I'm a consistent trader because and then say what those are. And then again, you can always check out the fire and forget style. I encourage you. You don't have to do exactly mine, but learn how to do conditional orders. And
Mhm.
so let's see. We talked about, again. I encourage you to, if you can, stop in and see us on Thursday. We're gonna have a good time. Bring your questions, and you will walk away uh, removing a lot of your pain points, and hopefully providing you a really great set of uh, an action plan that you can that you can put in place and start working on. And so the other
Where
last
where
thing,
where do
Mike,
people Dennis? Where do
what's
people
that?
go to get the workshop?
Yeah, I put it in I put the link in the dialogue in the chat,
Okay.
and it's
So
actually it's
Autopilot Traders. Yep.
autopilottraders.com/workshop. And
Awesome.
that'll take you to a Zoom link, and this is all free. One of the other things, Mike, and I think we need to talk about this in the future, is is the application of knowledge, the application of education is
Mhm.
also a very critical link on that I think people can make towards becoming both a improving their mindset and their mechanics of trading, and
Mm.
is basically to, if you're reading a book on trading, you could be reading Mike's book, the Trading Mind Wheel. You could be reading my book, The Trade Your Way to Freedom. Is when you read a new trading book, here's your assignment: is make it a point to define an action that you will take after every chapter
Mhm.
to become a better trader. And that way, all of a sudden, you know, applied knowledge turns into wisdom. And so, yeah. So, do you agree with that thought and
Great point.
philosophy, Mike? Huh?
Yeah, great point. Great point, great tactic to great way to study.
So,
Yeah, be intentional. Yeah, we don't want to read, especially like something like trading books, right? Like uh, be intentional, read with purpose, get something out of it. Make sure that you get something out of it. What Dennis said is spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it's almost like that with almost everything we read. I mean, unless you're reading the instructions on how to install your dishwasher or something like that, then you already have a list of action plan you should do for that. So, um, mechanics or mindset, which is most important to you? If you can leave a comment, mechanics or mindset, leave a comment in the comments. And if you're watching this on Spotify or YouTube or any of the other areas, just leave a comment there. We'd love to have a discussion with you on that. I know Mike would like to talk to you. I'd like to talk to you. And so, um, let's see what else we got going on here. Mindset and why. Challenge limits. Trade. Just encourage you to trade one setup. Follow your rules. Journal what you feel and what you see, and ask you. Over on Spotify, subscribe to the Spotify channel. Mike, how do they find the Spotify channel?
And just go over to Spotify and search for the Trading Truths podcast, and
Okay,
right there.
and they can leave a review over there also, right?
Oh, sure, sure.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
something's up with Spotify. They only allow you to do 5-star reviews, so you got to do a 5-star review. I'm sorry
Okay, there we
that's
go.
it.
And so,
I'm just
and if you
kidding.
haven't done,
Hey,
and if
5
you
stars, 1 star. Let us know what you think, and drop comments too. Those are always very nice and helpful.
exactly, and the other thing, for both Mike and I, is head on over to Amazon, because you sell your book on Amazon, right?
Yeah, yeah. Books on
Okay.
Amazon.
Head on over to Amazon. I know I sell my book over there also, and leave a good review. Leave a review over on our Amazon page for our book. Really appreciate that. Um, don't be a ghost follower. I had a lady the other day, Mike, who came up to me and said, "Dennis, thank you so much for that. You did a YouTube video about the nanonuclear, the small modular reactor uh, stock." And she goes, "I made a lot of money on that." I go, "Well, that's great." And it was totally freebie to her. And I asked her, "Well, did you leave a review? Did you comment on that?" And like I said, "Oh no, I didn't do that." So I chastised her for being a ghost follower. No, and I said, "Hey, just do us a courtesy, because for Mark, reviews and comments, and I'm not begging for them, but they mean a whole lot to both Mike and
Yeah.
I." Uh,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, were you able to drag her out of the spirit realm and get her to do that, or you don't know?
I don't know. I've got to go check Amazon,
Like,
but again, just and I know if you have received, gotten one of Mike's ebooks or one of my ebook, you can still go leave a review on Amazon for the print copies, and just say that you received a copy directly from the author,
mm,
and and that's one of the cool things about it is. And so, I'd like to see the
that is cool.
reviews, because I've sold thousands of copies of my book, but with again, I get a lot of comments back on email saying, "Hey, I loved your book." I got one the other day. A guy said, "Hey, I applied to everything from your book, and in the first 2 months, he on a $15,000 account, he earned $4,000, right?" And I said,
That's great.
could you please go over and leave that as a comment?" And he responded back to it, "Yeah, if I have time." I'm going, okay, hey, I don't know. So that's where I'll leave it. Anyway, hey,
Mm,
Mike, I'll just say aloha, God bless, and we'll see everybody next week. And have a happy and a great 4th of July. Celebrate, and let this 4th of July also mark your Independence Day. Your financial Independence Day. So
good one,
I'll
my
say
Dennis.
aloha And God bless. Mike, you want to sign off?
God bless everybody. Take care. See you next week.
See you guys.